In an ever-increasing economy lies a daily dilemma most of you will probably face. Should I just save some money and use that cheapo fuel, or play it safe with my car by topping off with a more expensive premium quality fuel? Here's the short answer: it depends. As all cars come with different types of engines and are all at different points in their lives, just like all of us, we have split this guide into several questions so you can decide what is the best fuel for you. To end things off, we'll also cover what to use if you can't afford petrol at all. With that being said, let's get hustling and bustling. One of the great myths that seems to get passed around like the plague, trust me, I know from first-hand experience, is a common belief that as cars get older, premium fuel must be used even in cars that accept regular fuel, which is either 87 octane if you're in the States or 91 RON if you're in Australia, so that the engine lasts longer. To be honest, unless you get a sensation we call engine knocking, which we'll cover later in this section, just keep using it on regular fuel. This is as the engine is actually tuned to run on regular fuel, and as a result, there's really no benefit to using premium besides your wallet burning down a hole. Look, unless you're very environmentally conscious, the one win I'll hand over to premium fuels is definitely the carbon footprint. But there's a twist to the tale. Some engines, not all, so you'll need to check the manual of your specific car, such as the 1GR FE in the 4-litre V6 Hilux and a 2.5-litre turbo in the Mazda 6, CX-5 and CX-9, actually let you unlock more power if you put premium fuel in. Adding to that, many modern engines have what is also known as a recommended fuel grade, which may be higher than the minimum fuel grade. When this is the case, this is where we'd stick with the recommended stuff just for extra peace of mind in the long term. So, why isn't a good idea to cheap out and use regular fuel if my car doesn't accept it? If it doesn't, don't do it. You get this nasty feeling through the engine that's a little bit bone shaking, if you will. This is known as engine knocking, which is where the fuel detonates before the engine ignites said fuel. Not only that, but running a lower octane can lead to damage to the engine in the long term as well. Crikey! Now, onto the real cost cut of your wallet, E10. You might probably think using E10, which is a blend of 10% ethanol and 90% petrol, might be a good idea as your car can accept it, and it's cheaper than even unleaded petrol or regular octane. But there's something you gotta keep in mind. It's not bad like people can tend to think in terms of potential long-term engine reliability, that is if your car is rated to take E10. It's more of a fuel efficiency problem, to be honest. This is as E10, despite only using a small percent of ethanol, requires more volume to detonate at the same rate as even your cheaper regular octane, or unleaded if you're an Aussie. Studies suggest as well that E10 leads to a fuel consumption increase of 3 to 5%, and if we run the numbers, this would mean that you need the fuel to be more than 5% cheaper per litre. As most fuel stations, at least in Australia, sell E10 at only 2 cents cheaper than 91 unleaded, you'd honestly be better off using 91 in terms of bang for buck, unless of course you're an environmentally conscious person. According to the CSIRO, E10 biofuel produced under Aussie conditions burns cleaner and as a result has a 2 to 5% decrease in CO2 emissions and a 20 to 30% decrease in particulate emissions compared to regular unleaded petrol. Let's now start talking about a common misconception that you all may have, which is well, it depends. You'd be surprised to know there actually is no difference between the brands of fuel, and the only way we can actually measure how high quality a petrol actually is by either the RON or the octane number in the US. This is pretty much an indicator of how well the fuel will resist burning too early inside your engine. The higher the quality, the less prone it is to the engine knocking we touched on earlier. Now, take it from me as a cash skimming uni student who uses the cheapest petrol wherever he goes in this 2007 port injected Orion that is rated to run at 91 RON. It makes no difference. I've used petrol from stations that even my parents deem as dodgy, But honestly, with almost 200,000 kilometers on my car, the car still runs like brand new. Wow, what a surprise! You'd also be surprised to realise that the petrol you buy at cheap stations like Speedway and Metro Petroleum in Australia and your big hitters like BP and Shell are all made from the same refinery. How it all works is that in these refineries, they will mix what we call additives as a government standard to keep your engine clean and as a result, reduce emissions. Specifically in Australia, we have extremely strict fuel standards that must be met before this fuel can even be sold. Then, the fuel is distributed to both your cheapo brands and premium brands, where they now put their own special combination additives into the fuel so that it can run better. It's just like a cake supplier selling the same cake to different cake shops who put their own special toppings to be different and stand out in the market. But you might be wondering, does it make an impact on your car's performance? Well, not all that much to be honest. A blind study in the US used 3 samples of fuel from cheaper brands and premium brands to test and see what was the difference between emissions, fuel economy and performance, and there was literally no difference. Even the engineering gods at Toyota, who studied the effects themselves of running different brands of fuel on the engine after 10,000 miles, confirmed this. However, if you have a direct injection engine which is rated to run on premium fuel, the story changes rather quickly. We covered the issues of direct injection in much more detail in our guide on YouTube, but long story short, these types of engines are much more likely to have carbon gunk buildup on the engine components as the fuel is directly shot into the cylinder during the combustion cycle instead of first touching the intake valves. So how do I know whether my engine is direct injection or not? Simply click onto an online car marketplace relevant to your country to check the fuel section within the car specs, and it will tell you if it's direct injection within the fuel delivery subheading. If your car is direct injection, what we suggest is actually using any fuel that is top tier detergent gasoline. Basically, that's your high quality stuff, and the real difference between your cheaper brand fuel and the top dogs like Shell and BP is the special combo of additives we referred to earlier, which contain detergents that can actually prevent and reduce this carbon buildup. Not quite cleaner though if it's already existing. They do this by helping your intake valves, fuel injectors and combustion chambers keep clean over time as opposed to your cheaper fuel, which contains contaminants that don't burn as cleanly and as a result can thicken into those nasty carbon deposits in your car. Now, if your car uses dual injection, like we see in many Toyota V6s, the BRZ and GR86, and lastly the GR Yaris and GR Corolla, it's okay to use that cheap fuel unless you're driving hard on either back roads or track days. So we've talked about using cheapo brand petrol, but petrol's raw ingredient known as crude oil can last for millions of years, but when it turns into petrol, you'd be lucky to get a couple years at most. But what if you're taking a 5-week holiday and you leave your car at home? Honestly, you'll be alright. Fuel goes bad very slowly, unlike food and milk. And even if you use the same old petrol for a few months in a modern car, you'll be fine. All modern engines have a NOx sensor which allows the engine to adapt on the fly to what octane you have in your car, and an O2 sensor in the exhaust which allows the engine to adjust the air-fuel ratio on the fly. So these peroxides, which can cause the fuel quality to decrease, will not actually be too bad. That is, if you don't leave it in the garage for years of course. So, what to do if you're a garage queen and don't intend to drive your car for a while and just keep it as an investment in pristine condition? Well, we recommend either keeping the tank full with fuel stabilizer to prevent moisture buildup and fuel system corrosion, or if you're not driving this car for over a year, you can drain your fuel tank and store it into a container like sealed steel drums. In a peer-reviewed paper at intercopen.com was a reference study by the Automotive Industry Institute which found out that the RON or octane number in petrol samples stored in sealed steel drums for 4 years actually decreased. This RON was still good enough within the fuel standards, and nothing in this study actually suggested the fuel was unusable. The science behind fuel systems in modern cars is that they are sealed properly so that the fuel doesn't simply evaporate and vanish into the air, but volatile components within the fuel like light hydrocarbons can evaporate over time, leading to a gradual octane drop. let's now cover the cheapest race fuel that you can buy, known as E85. What's the difference between E85 and the E10 we just talked about? Well, whilst E10 is mostly petrol, E85 is mostly ethanol, with only 15% of it being petrol. So when can you use E85? Only if your car allows it. But here's the thing, not many cars actually accept E85, besides what we call flexible fuel vehicles, which you can find on this list on Wikipedia, which I'll link in the description. So, what if my car is a flex fuel? Would it still be beneficial to use E85? If you're an environmentalist, absolutely! E85 biofuel produces roughly 35 to 40% less emissions than petrol through emitting lower levels of carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide, and it's also the more ethical choice since it's sourced from natural materials instead of fossil fuel mining. And if you're a high performance enthusiast who's got an E85 tune or has a powerful flex fuel car, also yes, as ethanol burns much cooler than your normal fuel, components such as turbos or superchargers can run at safe temps and as a result make more power. For example, V8 supercars have used E85 from 2009 to 2022. But it's not all roses and sunshine, unfortunately. As E85 runs cooler, it also translates to worse fuel economy and a lot of unburnt fuel if your engine can't get hot to ignite it. And when we talk about direct injection engines, this can potentially cause this unburnt fuel to thicken into nasty carbon deposits. Crikey! E85 is also roughly 10 to 20 cents more per litre than premium 98 RON or 93 Aki. Not only that, but unlike petrol, which usually lasts longer in your fuel tank, E85 can go bad in just a few months, causing your car to inject water directly into the cylinder. Now, we've touched on choosing the right petrol. A question might creep into your mind if your wallet is getting thinner and thinner. So, April Fools! If you have a car that uses gasoline, you must use gasoline. Simple as that. But to bring some comedic cheer to the occasion today, as it's April Fool's Day, let's briefly go over a scenario where people fill up their car with something completely different to petrol and diesel. In diesel cars, many people have actually used waste vegetable oil to save lots of money and fill up a full diesel tank. In Top Gear's very first episode, they actually strained the oil through a J-cloth to remove the remnants of food lurking within the oil and then mixed it with a solvent, in this case a white spirit, and then it was put into Clarkson's Volvo 960 that was completely empty of any diesel, and guess what? It actually ran! The guest on that Top Gear episode was actually a reputable supplier of road-ready waste vegetable oil, where despite its 800% tax of 26p in 2008, it only costs just 3p per litre. Crikey! With that all being said, let's head into concluding remarks. What can we take from all of this? Just use the recommended RON or Aki that your car's manual specifies unless your engine starts making some knocking noises. Honestly, it really doesn't matter what brand you use, unless of course you have direct injection, and that's a different story. I hope this has helped you out in choosing the right petrol for you, as we believe there's lots of confusion and even at times misinformation out there about this contentious topic. Thank you guys so much for the support on this channel so we can make helpful guides like this one that aim to be approachable for even non-car people. If you're interested in learning a lot more about direct injection and improving your car's performance in general, check out these videos. If you have any questions or facts we missed, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you in a bit.